online views were a lead indicator for growth. So if your online views were increasing, you were a growing church.
So 96% of churches are now offering online services.
Declining churches are much more likely to juggle multiple worship styles.
The Unstuck group came out with a really interesting report, the Q3 2025 report. We'll link it down below. You can check it out. The Unstuck group, they're a consulting firm that helps churches get unstuck with, sounds like, church growth.
Yeah.
Right? So this report, they surveyed 252 churches who have weekly in-person attendance ranging from 100 to more than 12,000. And on average, these churches see about 1,169 people in their worship gathering. So the 12,000 really skews the average attendance up there. And again, some of this, the data that we'll cover here, it is from I think 252 is a pretty, not as high of a number as I would like to see as we talk about reports like this, but I think they're
still a lot of work. They did a lot of research. Calling up 250
churches.
And
I think what's valuable is like you can know the type of firm that Unstuck is and what they sound like is like they're working with churches that want to grow, right?
Yeah.
So like all these are churches that sounds like the people they're pulling are the ones who maybe they're their clients or customers or in their database and like trying to get unstuck, trying to see growth happen in their churches. So they have some interesting stats here, specifically around live streaming and how that impacts church growth.
Yeah, and worship style too. They did some of the questions around worship style. So like the first one we've got here is 76% of their churches that they questioned sent all these questions to now only offer modern or contemporary worship services. So at this point in 2025, is there a place for separate services, traditional services? We've got churches that are a part of the Churchfront that we help that still do a traditional and a contemporary service. What are your thoughts on this, that we're really moving towards where we're only seeing these modern and contemporary services? Yeah,
because this is kind of still a little bit left over from the worship wars of the 90s, the early 2000s. Now we're in the 2020s, and I could go both and. I think I love different styles and expressions of worship. Like I love the beauty of choir and organ and traditional worship style, and then also I love modern contemporary music with a wonderful modern cutting edge AV systems. So we love supporting both of those. I think it is hard though, strategically, pastorally, leadership wise, to lead and grow a church that are doing both of those services. And again, I have been in that position. I served as a worship leader at a church that had both contemporary and modern services. And fortunately, we had a venue that lent itself decently to both. It was definitely skewed toward the traditional type of layout. But I love how more traditional worship venues, I think, just have better architecture to them.
100%.
But the modern venues are going to often look and sound better in terms of the modern music. But I think this is a pretty valid observation that most churches that they surveyed, and these are churches that are they're growing churches, they're pursuing growth. I think the churches that are finding more momentum in growth have one worship style that they focus on.
And that brings up the next one, which I think is really interesting. Declining churches are much more likely to juggle multiple worship styles. Yep. So it's I don't know that it's. Here would be my encouragement to churches now. I think we're past the worship wars. Mm-hmm. So churches that have been like, yeah, we're just not doing hymns. We're going to cut those out. We're not doing them. I was never one that like, oh, I have to do a hymn. And in all honesty, there were times where like I just didn't think of hymn. Like I don't think that way musically because I didn't grow up with as many. I grew up in a church that did hymns, but not after like high school. High school, I moved into churches that were doing much more modern stuff. And so it's not that I dislike hymns or don't want to do hymns. It's just they don't come to me as quickly as modern worship songs. I'm not as familiar. But I do think there is a place to honor the history of where we came as a church. And I think we're in an era now, and I think the younger generation especially is going to be more open to hearing music that comes out of the history of our faith. I think the younger generation, we've seen this, we cover this with the Generation Z video we did on what they're doing with modern worship styles. They're simplifying. It's becoming less about the show. It's becoming less about the lighting.
Yep.
It's becoming just a cleaner, more just a nice looking church service. I think the same thing could be said for stylistically worship wise. I don't think Generation Z is going to get mad about doing him if it's done well.
Yeah.
Right. So I think this is something to think about as you're processing through how do we handle this. We're at the time where I do think churches should start that are still doing these multiple. I think it's time to start going, hey, we are not two churches. Mm-hmm. We are one church. And if we're going to grow moving into this next generation, we have to be one church. We have to be united as a church. We have to figure out how to come together, old and young. And the old people need to be excited that the young people are coming to church. And the young people need to be respectful that this is still a church that is mostly supported by older people.
Yep.
And we should be able to handle both of those things and live in that tension. So many times, I think in so many different areas, churches are trying to make arguments and decisions black and white. We're going to do this, or we're going to do this, or we're going to do this. And so much of church life is living in the tension. And I think this is no different, is in traditional versus contemporary. Let's live in the tension. Maybe not everyone's going to be happy all the time, but we need to cast the vision for all of our people to understand that we're doing this so that we are one church under one roof. So,
yeah, again, because personally, I don't think I would be able to. Again, I served on staff at a church that had the different styles, and I think now I would prefer either or. It's like I would like, hey, I think I would prioritize the unity around a particular style or liturgy over trying to segment it out, because I think there's a lot of power in having the whole congregation, the local body together in one place, doing the same liturgy, the same songs, the same music and such. My preference, and I think strategically in the stats, we are seeing that's also what helps promote better growth and better momentum. The other thing I'll say there is either, side of the spectrum, a lot of people really just want, they want excellence in it. And I think that's where it gets messy, is where, I think people really in worship, they appreciate excellence and they appreciate life and vibrancy. And you can have that both in either a traditional environment or in a contemporary environment. And I think it gets dangerous for either route if it's not done well and it's just dead. Like, people aren't there passionately leading, passionately worshiping. It's got to be actual based on scripture and the truth that is being preached. Because again, I can encounter a worship service where there's like a powerful choir in an orchestra. And I'm like, wow, this is incredible. I would be totally down for being a part of this every week. We actually have a church near us here, First Baptist Melbourne. They have a beautiful new space, and it's definitely like they're like, hey, we are traditional Baptists, and we are owning that, and then we're going to be really good at it. And they built a beautiful building for it. I mean, they have good attendance. Like, that's what they do. That's what they focus on. I think that's great. And then we have other churches that are like, hey, we are going to lean. We have Elevation Campus here in this city too, right?
Yeah.
Or they're on the other side of the spectrum. So I think a church really needs to unify themselves around owning a particular style and do it well. And then also, if you lean one of either ways, if you're a modern worship leader and that's all you know, I'm telling you, you're going to experience a greater level of depth in your leading of worship if you look to other styles and glean from them. Like, so if you're a modern worship leader, all you've kind of known is Phil Whitcomb, Bethel, Elevation, Hillsong, great. I would spend some time following Keith and Kristen Getty and the songwriting that they do, where it's actually still like modern worship style. And again, that's the thing about music, is you can just change the style pretty easily to feel like it's relevant to your situation, but you can still be using the same lyrical context or content in whatever style. So learn from other songwriters out there or worship leaders who are in a different style. And then if you're in a, more traditional style, learn from the contemporary style and see how you could maybe benefit from some of that too. just don't get stuck in your ways. And if you feel like your way you're leading is just kind of dead and there's no passion, there probably is something off there. It's like that, and that's where worship services go downhill, no matter the style.
Yeah, because we're gonna do this, and the people that are leading it are like, oh. And the second you sigh because you don't want to prepare for a specific service type or style, you're already lost, right? There's no vision. And where there's no vision, the people will perish. So it's so much about being able to see the vision, chase the vision, and own it for who you are.
And we're AV guys, so let's think about that too. A lot of people don't underestimate the challenge of a space for what style they're trying to do. So if your church is like, okay, we really want to lean into more modern contemporary music, you better be ready to invest into transforming that space from just a traditional style to something that is more contemporary, or could do both. Like you could just flip a switch and it kind of gives you the ability. The technology is there, but maybe you're trying to have some sort of more blended worship. You're going to have to treat the room probably with acoustic treatment. You're going to have a better PA in there, because when you're doing more modern music, you want to have a sense where the sound is closer to the listener, so there's better intelligibility and clarity, especially when you're trying to mix a band. In a more traditional environment, you're used to hearing the bigness of the space in the room for reverb and the choir and the orchestra, but that's just a whole different way you approach your AV system for that. So that's the other piece of it. I would be like, when you do go kind of choose like what style or route do we want to go with, like you need to properly reinforce that with your systems in the space.
And until you can do that, you need to understand you're going to have limitations.
Yeah.
You got a super live bouncy room. Don't go straight for drums.
Yep.
Put a cajon in there and, do some acoustic stuff, not quite as much electric guitar, not quite as much, because all those middle range frequencies of all your modern worship instruments are going to crowd up that space where vocals live, and you're going to make it impossible to mix.
Yep.
So learn that even the space you're in needs to dictate who you are a little bit. You need to understand that there's always concessions to be made. Hey, we want to move this direction. Well, great. Here's what that's going to cost. In the meantime, scale it back, do what you can to reach that vision again.
Yep.
So
my favorite thing is when you do have an existing church building, it feels like a church, it looks like a church, and that's when you make that transformation of like, what does it look like locally in our context to make the music and the worship relevant and vibrant, but historic and true to the faith. Those are all the things that I'm looking for in how we bring those things together. Again, at Rock Harbor, my own church, we are in an old Lutheran building. We are in the process of a multi-year. We're just renovating things as we have budgets for it. But my vision for the worship space there is to be a place where we are preserving majority of the traditional aesthetic of the room, the stained glass, the high ceilings, the vaulted ceilings, a lot of natural wood, but we're treating it appropriately so that that space is going to be flexible for the style of music we want to lead. It's going to lean more contemporary, but not always. I mean, we have Brian is definitely our worship leader. He's more in the contemporary route. I'm going to be the type that's like, hey, when I lead, I want to introduce a little bit more of like some of the modern hymns type feel, which still works with a contemporary band, but again, has a bit more of the little meatier content there sometimes. It's all the above, I think, and a lot of it too depends on the team you've brought together and who can contribute what.
Kind of end off this conversation, churches with contemporary worship are more likely to see online engagement. So moving from style into the online space, it does seem like there's that trend that if you are going to be the church that is doing your more traditional stuff, maybe live streaming isn't nearly as important. Maybe you're not going to see the engagement anyways. Maybe don't focus on it in your traditional space nearly as much as you do in your contemporary space. So
at least from like a marketing standpoint, it's good for, hey, there's people who are homebound. They need to see the service, hear the service clearly, and that might be their life for the last 10, however many years of their life. right?
Yeah.
They literally can't make it to church except for maybe special occasions. And I think that's where we have a really cool opportunity because of technology today that we can minister to those people. And then most often they're probably going to be more bent towards traditional style worship that they grew up with. So this next stat, the average number of people watching online services each week jumped by 22% over the last year. I'd be interested to see how they actually calculated all this. And again, this is with the pool of churches, the 250 churches they surveyed at Unstuck Church Group. But that's interesting. More people engaging online, which I do think, that's the trend of internet adoption. More and more of all of our activity keeps going online over the years. So we're seeing that with churches, especially now that majority of churches, I think they had a stat that said prior to COVID, it was something percent, 20% of churches were online. Now it's 96% or much higher amount of churches are online. So 96% of churches are now offering online services, again, from this group. But I think the same group, it was a quarter of them had online services a few years ago.
Yeah. It's been a huge shift, just even philosophically, and I think that's that debate that a lot of churches have gone through. And I think we've had this conversation a couple months back, kind of responding to Brady and their team. We love Brady, and his stuff is fantastic, but we do differ a little bit in our opinion of online services because they're not going anywhere. And as much as yes, it takes some intentionality, it takes some knowledge, it takes some training, it takes a little bit of equipment to do a decent online service, the amount of money, time, energy, knowledge has decreased.
Oh yeah, massively. It's getting easier and easier every year.
So the argument to stop streaming because you can't do it well, I would say, or just get better. And we are seeing that it's not going away.
Or simplify.
Yes.
That's the thing. Right now, it's so easy. If you had a 1, maybe 2 camera setup, get great audio, make sure you have some good lighting, you can have an incredible high definition stream for your services, running off of a very, very budget friendly system.
Yeah. Well, even as integrators, we look at these big budgets that we're doing, and because a lot of the churches that we're doing, it's not a huge focus to do an online service. They're not doing $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 cameras.
No,
Some of them are, but a lot of them are doing PTZ optics cameras. So a couple grand a piece, even if they had just do 2 or 3 cameras, or one of the smallest sections of that budget is broadcast.
Yep.
Really, the biggest sections of the budgets that we're doing, we're telling churches, and this is intentional on our part because broadcast technology changes so quickly, but the majority of the place you're going to spend your money is PA and lighting, is stuff in the space, because that's where you need to spend the majority of your money. But for a small little add-on, comparatively, obviously that's...
Well, but remember, PA and lighting are actually part of the broadcast.
True.
Because it's all upstream from those things, and that's what allows us, we're hey, let's make it really good in the room because it's going to make it so much easier to translate well online too. Not only just making it great for people in the room.
Yeah. But I guess my point is we would want to still make it really good in the room even if we weren't broadcasting.
Correct.
Right?
Yeah.
So the add-on to do the broadcast is actually a small, probably one of the smallest sections of those budgets. So the fact that 96% of these churches they interviewed are broadcasting online. There was a huge jump during COVID. We all became live streamers overnight. And then a lot of churches, as they were coming back into the building, they were like, yeah, we don't want to stream anymore because we want people to come to church. Even in Brady's talk that they did a couple months back, it was obvious that you're not hurting your church by live streaming. That was one of the stats. I don't remember exactly what it was, but it was something along the lines of the people that come online are just as likely to be people that are engaged in person as well. They're people that are attending both online and in person, right? So we're not hurting our in-person attendance by broadcasting online. I think that was a myth that some pastors bought into earlier on in that argument.
Yeah, and I think as a pastor leader, you make it clear to your congregation, hey, if you're not here in the room, you're missing out. You could really online's great. Again, in my mind, it's a really great marketing tool, important marketing tool for churches when people are considering coming to your church for the first time, it's a great front door for new attendees at your church. It's great for people on the road. They want to stay plugged in with that sermon series. Like, how many people are, say, a church attendee or someone who goes to your church regularly is on vacation? Are they literally sitting and watching the whole stream? Some of them are. I'll confess, I'm not. Like, I'm probably, maybe I'll stream the sermon from that week, or I'll just be at another church wherever I'm at. Most of the cases, like, I'm at a place where I can just go to church somewhere else in person. I like visiting churches all the time. But yeah, I don't know. The live stream thing, I think the bulk of it, I'd say 80% of the benefit of it, that's my scientific stat, comes into the marketing. People want to consider visiting your church the first time. It's an easier front door for them to experience your church before committing to actually coming through the real door.
Yeah. So this next one, this was the one that the reel that I saw basically was centered around, and it caught me because that's not something I'd necessarily heard before.
Yeah.
And I do think it flies in the face of people that say, yeah, if you can't do it right, stop live streaming, because with all of these 250 churches that they surveyed, online views were a lead indicator for growth. So if your online views were increasing, you were a growing church.
Yep.
So I don't know exactly how they came to this specific statement, but their statement was that online views were a lead indicator for growth.
It's like, so do they see stats of like, okay, our stream views are going up, and then we're starting to notice attendance going up? I mean, again, I don't know how scientific it is. Maybe you could actually interview them on how they did the survey and some of the, a little bit more info in the data. I think that would be interesting to dive into the weeds of that. But yeah, this is an interesting stat from GitNux. I don't know, I never heard of them, but it's an interesting stat. 40% of online church viewers are first-time visitors, which kind of goes back to what I was saying.
Yeah, and that's kind of where I think that ties in, is that if you're getting online views, those are people that are potentially going to come check out your church. And we said this in the last one, we don't want to beat a dead horse, but if I move to a new area, there is zero chance that I'm walking into a church building without having gone to their website, looking at their What Do We Believe page, and then going to check out, see what a live stream looks like. And I'm not even necessarily all that concerned with quality. Mm-hmm. I can tell if singers are terrible with good quality or bad quality. Yeah. Like I've been around enough to know, like, hey, that's mostly the live stream. That's not necessarily the singer. So but I want to know kind of what they look like, what they sound like, what their preaching style is like. Those are things I want to see before I walk into a building for the first time.
Another interesting stat from GitNux, 25% of churches report membership growth tied directly to online services. So another stat there.
Yeah.
Again, we don't know the science behind these stats.
75% of stats are made up, including this one.
Exactly. But it makes sense. It's like more people are going to see your church, find it online. The more people are going to show up.
Yeah.
Now, don't take it and be like, this is where people are like, we need to go buy like a bunch of red cameras and stream in 12K. It's like, no, don't be irresponsible. Like we said, you can get some great online streams with a very value-oriented system.
And if you're going to focus on your live stream, you focus first on audio. People will watch a bad video with good audio long before they'll watch a bad audio with good video.
So big thank you to the Unstuck group for putting this report together. I look forward to seeing future reports. You guys can go check out the link below if you want to subscribe to their email list, and they'll send that out. Zero affiliation here. We just thought this would be interesting content to talk about this topic. And again, actually be fun to maybe have them on an interview or something like that here in the near future. If you would like help with your church's AV systems, go to churchfront.com, and we are here to help you install the latest AV solutions for better audio, video, or lighting, or streaming. All these things we talked about today. So thanks for watching. We will see you next time.